There's a certain kind of silence you only get in the mountains, you know? It's heavy, like someone took a thick velvet blanket and dropped it right on top of the world. Everything muffled, still just for a second, right before the sun cracks through the tree and the whole lake starts to wake up. I paid $500,000 for that kind of quiet. $500,000. And here's the joke. 2 months later, the loudest thing in my life was the click of high heels coming down my dock at sunrise. Yeah, I'm serious. First, let me back up a bit. I'm Elias Thorne, 48, but if you'd seen the look in my eyes last winter, you'd have tacked on another decade or two. My wife Sarah and I, we both had enough of the grind. She ran schools for 30 years, ran them like a ship in rough water. And well, let's just say I've seen enough financial shenanigans in D.C. to last 3 lifetimes. You ever chase dirty money for the government? Don't. It eats at you. So we did the American thing. We took everything we'd saved, cashed out, and bought a chunk of peace, 2 acres on the shore of Cedar Cove, Oregon, 100 steps from our kitchen door to the dock. My version of the promised land. Just me, my coffee, and that mist rolling off the water in the morning. You want to hear about the American dream? I'll tell you what they don't write in the brochures. Tuesday morning. Not just any Tuesday. The kind where the air has teeth, bites the inside of your nose, makes you feel alive. I'm pushing my old green kayak off the dock, right into the glassy water when I hear it. Click, click, click. Sharp, angry, too fast for comfort. If you've ever met someone who treats the world like it's a personal inconvenience, you know the sound. I didn't need to turn around, but I did anyway. There she was, Karen Vance, 50-something, president of the HOA. She had that haircut that looks like it could slice through rebar, and a tracksuit I'm pretty sure cost more than my entire kayak setup. Storming down from her glass palace on the hill, like she was about to smite me for paddling in her personal ocean. She's got her finger up, all tense, shouting about community standards and permits and how I had no authorization to so much as dip my toes in the water. And, get this, every day I access her lake, that'd be a $500 fine. Per day. No warning, no conversation, just a woman with too much power and a smartphone, taking pictures of me like I'd robbed the First National Bank. I tried to talk. I really did. I told her I'd read the covenants. I explained the deed, the rights. Heck, I'd spent more time reading HOA paperwork than I did picking out her house. She didn't care. Just smirked, told me the rules had changed, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. And the way she said it, you ever had someone look at you like you're just in the way? That was it. 3 days later, I get a letter. Certified, naturally. It lands in my mailbox like a little hand grenade. $15,000 in back fines. Retroactive. From the moment we moved in. Immediate legal action and foreclosure if not paid in 10 days. Sarah read the letter and actually went pale. I didn't know people really did that, but she did. Now, most folks, I guess they pay, or panic, or list the house and get the hell out. But Karen Vance had no clue who she was up against. See, she saw a guy in a flannel shirt, new to town. She didn't know I'd spent 15 years tracing money through shell companies and fake charities, building cases against men who could buy and sell 100 Karens before breakfast. My radar was pinging so hard it gave me a headache. Something was off, so I started looking. Public records, board meetings. You'd be surprised what you can dig up if you don't mind getting your hands dirty. And what I found, it was so bold, I almost had to respect it. Turns out, the emergency meeting where they stripped property rights from 800 homeowners. Yeah, that happened on Christmas Eve. Who holds a board meeting on Christmas Eve? For people voted. Karen and 3 of her friends. That's not just shady. That's not even legal. Oregon law says you need a 67% supermajority for that sort of thing. They didn't even hit 5%. I started walking the neighborhood, door to door. Felt a bit like a Jehovah's Witness, except instead of pamphlets, I had questions. That's how I met Martha Higgins. 73, widow, More backbone than I'd seen in half the guys at the bureau. She poured me black coffee, told me the whole history of Cedar Cove, how Karen pushed out the old board, doubled the dues, let the roads go to hell while her husband's management company collected fat checks. You ever get that sinking feeling? Like you know where a story's going and you hate it, but you have to hear the end? That was me. Everything Martha told me. The intimidation, the bullying, the fake authority. Yeah, I'd seen it before. Always ended the same way. So, I decided to poke the bear. Sent in a formal request for the HOA's financials. In the suburbs, that's like tossing a grenade into a chicken coop. Karen went nuclear. Next day, she's got a Facebook post up about toxic newcomers ruining the neighborhood. Suddenly, folks who used to wave at me won't meet my eye. And then the fine started. Not just for me, for anyone who so much as said hi. Martha got fined for garden gnomes that had been there since the 90s. Bob Miller, guy down the street, got dinged for parking his work truck, his own driveway. Lucia Rodriguez, single mom, gets a violation for grass being too tall. A quarter inch. You getting the picture? She wanted me isolated. But the thing about bullies, real bullies, they confuse silence with surrender. And they don't realize that backing someone like me into a corner is just giving me a reason to push back. Sarah, she knew what was coming before I did. She hosted a wine and wine night at our place, disguised resistance, basically. 15 neighbors showed up, hands shaking, holding stacks of violation letters. Martha brought out an old shoebox full of records. She'd never trusted Karen, thank God. And when we spread those papers out, it all became clear. Karen's family hadn't paid a dime in dues for 3 years. That's almost 50 grand, while she fined folks on Social Security for nonsense. And those consulting fees? Massive round numbers going from the HOA's reserve to her husband's company. Emergency landscaping. Sure, nobody remembered it happening. It was textbook embezzlement, plain and simple. A 6-figure hole. The fines? Just plugging the gaps until she could get out. There's a moment in every story where the mood shifts. For me, it was the night I realized the whole neighborhood was being held hostage by a woman with a taste for power and an eye for loopholes. Bob Miller looked at me and just asked, "How we stop her?" That's when I told everyone the truth. We document everything. We build a case. And things are going to get worse before they get better. I knew she'd get desperate. I just didn't know how far she'd go. Next morning, I'm out by the water again. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, watching the light come up, trying to remember why I'd wanted peace so badly in the first place. And then I hear gravel crunch. A sheriff's car, lights flashing. Officer Daniels gets out. Looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. He asked me to step away from the kayak, my own damn kayak on my own damn dock, and tells me there's a complaint against me for trespassing. On my property. Up on the hill, I can see Karen, arms folded, smirking. She looked like a villain in a cheap movie, savoring her big moment. The handcuffs clicked shut. I'd heard that sound enough, but never from this side. Sarah was on the porch, hands over her mouth. Neighbors staring through their blinds. I told Daniels, "This is a civil matter, and you know it." He just sighed. "She showed me a court order, sir. I have to bring you in." That's when I knew. Karen had forged a judge's signature. That's not just a slap on the wrist. That's real time. For hours in a holding cell is a long time to think. When I got out, my anger had cooled into something hard, sharp. I called Jessica, a property rights attorney up in Portland. If you ever need someone to take on an HOA, call Jessica. She doesn't so much practice law as she wields it. By the time I was home, we drafted subpoenas for every scrap of paper Karen and her cronies had ever touched. Discovery was ugly. Karen claimed lost files, executive privilege. The dog ate my hard drive. But federal subpoenas? They don't care. We found it all. The HOA was broke. 340 grand in secret debt. Karen had been draining the accounts to pay off her own bankruptcies and live like a queen. You know what really gets me? She tried to slap every household with a $2,000 special assessment just to fill the hole before the audit. She wasn't fixing the roads. She was propping up a Ponzi scheme, one fine at a time. Things turned dark after that. My kayak got shredded, foam everywhere, little yellow tufts like a warning. We started seeing private security, big guys in black SUVs, cruising past houses at 2 in the morning. They followed Martha to the store, parked outside Sarah's work, cut Martha's water 3 times in a week, claimed it was infrastructure repairs. She had to haul buckets from a neighbor just to flush. Here's the mistake Karen made. She thought she was dealing with scared neighbors, not someone with friends in federal law enforcement. I called a couple guys I knew from the bureau. We started tracing transfers, funds into a shell company in Delaware, bouncing money through crypto, all the classics. That's federal. Wide froth. Money laundering. Every threat she sent by mail, that's mail fraud. It stacks up fast. We got audio, too. Video of her security goons vandalizing property. Paper trails connecting her straight to $500,000 in stolen funds. Even her big-shot lawyers ditched her once they saw the evidence. Kara tried one last Hail Mary, called a meeting, 24-hour notice, to dissolve the HOA, liquidate all assets, and sell everything to a developer we quickly traced back to her husband. She wanted to take the money and run before the feds could freeze her out. That meeting, I'll never forget it. The place was packed. The air felt electric, like everyone was just holding on to see what would happen. Karen, looking more rattled than I'd ever seen, banged her gavel, shouted about saving the neighborhood, and tried to force a vote. Anyone who raised a question got shut down. She locked eyes with me and called me a washed-up bureaucrat. Said I had no authority there. And right then I knew it was time. I walked down the aisle, past everyone, straight up to her table. Reached into my jacket, pulled out my badge, 20 years, Financial Crimes Division. Flashed it so the whole room could see. Special Agent Elias Thorne. You're under active federal investigation. Told her the assets were frozen. The marshals were waiting outside. You should have seen her face. She went gray, like she'd been unplugged. Her husband looked like he might throw up right there. The room erupted, not with chaos, but with cheers, actual cheers. People hugging, Martha sobbing, Sarah smiling through tears. Karen tried to mumble about administrative errors, but it was over. I had the files, the emails, the invoices, everything. 2 days later, she got caught at the airport, suitcase full of cash, trying to board a flight to the Caymans. 18 counts. Plea deal. 4 years federal restitution. We clawed back almost every cent, seized her house, her cars, all of it. Used the money to fix the community center, patch the roads, set up a scholarship fund. Martha became interim president, rewrote the rules for transparency. Sarah and I, we finally got those quiet mornings. Coffee on the dock, sun coming up, nothing but the wind on the water. But if I'm being honest, there's a thought that nags at me every time the sun goes down. How many places like Cedar Cove are out there, ruled by little dictators who think the law is whatever they say it is? At what point does protecting a neighborhood turn into destroying lives? Why do we give so much power to folks who run on fear? So let me ask you, have you ever run into a Karen like this? Do HOAs protect us, or are they just a breeding ground for bullies and would-be tyrants? Where's the line? I want to hear what you think. Maybe you've got your own story. Maybe you've stood up, or maybe you wish you had. Don't stay silent. Seriously, that's all it takes for people like her to win. Stay sharp, and never let anyone take your peace.